So Samsung as a company is a really popular company and also has some good reputation. Or maybe put it in this way, not so great reputation as well. But why are we talking about Samsung? Let's rewind a bit about this.
An iPod, a phone.
Not that much, just a bit. Yeah. So picture this. It's 2021. OnePlus now makes flagships. LG Mobile is officially dead. The world is slowly coming back to normal. And our good folks at Samsung have a lot of wonderful opportunities of becoming the number one smartphone maker in the world. And they get hit by a problem. And another one. And another one.
Another one. Another one.
And another one. All of this leading up to Samsung's 2021 struggle. And why is all of this happening? For that, we might have to dive in more detail.
Samsung heir Lee Jae-yong has been sentenced to 2.5 years in prison.
Now, the head of one of the world's most influential companies, Samsung, has been jailed for corruption.
After a retrial of a bribery case involving former President Park Geun-hye,
J.Y. Lee has been sentenced to 2.5 years in prison.
So, Samsung Electronics Vice Chairman Lee Jae-yong was actually taken to prison on Monday after being sentenced for 2.5 years in jail for a bribery case in South Korea. And this followed up with the usual things that you know, like the stock prices going down, company reputation being hit hard. But something more than that was the fact that Samsung as a company was in a sort of management crisis. And that became really evident when the Fold series started launching. This was something big for Samsung, although it didn't really shake up the company at that time. It was slowly beginning to have a sort of negative effect on the whole company because of one small thing like this. So Samsung isn't something like Apple or OnePlus, who actually just give specific amount of models every year. They launch a lot of models in various countries, and they have a really big brand, and they cater from everything from budget devices to really high-end ultra flagships, which isn't considering a bad thing. It's just the fact that it has been really confusing, especially starting from 2019. So back in the day in 2014 or 2015, there was only one S series phone and one Note series phone. That would be the best that Samsung offers for that year, and period. There would not be anything that would one-up it from the company. But then starting from the S6 series, Samsung introduced a Edge model, and then an Edge Plus, and then a ruggedized Active model. And then slowly from that, there was just the normal version and then the Plus version. And then in 2020, things got really spiced up with a normal version, a Plus version, and a monstrous Ultra version that had a mammoth price tag. Which isn't necessarily wrong, but it just creates a ton of confusion. And I'm not talking about the confusion of something like what happened to LG, RIP. But the confusion is to say that the company already had a problem with what products to offer in what price segments and why should people buy it. And even though all of this has actually been happening, the company has stayed truly to something. The fact that the S series was for the general public who really wanted to have fast processors of the year and a reasonably bigger chassis with rounded corners, and it should be easy to use. That's the whole point. And the Note series, meanwhile, catered to business people who wanted to have boxy sides, really powerful, the best of the year, the best chipsets, and the really best power of the year, and followed by the S Pen, which was a really handy tool for many people for signing documents, and being productive and usual. But since 2019, even that has changed. So up until 2018, Samsung just delivered one Note phone, and that would be the best of the year. But in 2019, there was a completely different Note 10, a Note 10 Plus, and then a few months later, the 5G versions of them arrived. And then another few months later, we had the Note 10 Lite, which was completely like wrecking up the whole Note branding. And in 2020, it got even worse. So Samsung brought in a Note 20 and Note 20 Ultra, and while the Note 20 Ultra was really praised by critics for its best value ratio, it was also cheaper than the S series, which was something really confusing because the Note was actually catering to business people, but at the same time it was cheaper, but it was better value as well. So that's what it got away with. But then it also released the Note 20, which was a really bad value for money phone, and it only existed to show that the Note 20 was worth all of its price. But then it gets even worse. In 2021, the S21 Ultra gets S Pen support. And not like the Note series where the S Pen was inside a silo of the phone, but more like this kind of a clunky case. And it also gets even worse with the Fold series, where the Z Fold 3 is given a optional S Pen attachment with another clunky case, or you can just buy a normal S Pen pouch, and the S Pen is sold separately, and it has two variations with the S Pen and the S Pen Pro. So there's a lot of confusion going on to decide what is for the general public and general consumers and what is for business people. And sometimes even Samsung's own phones actually cannibalize sales. Like for example, the really incredibly good value S20 FE. It actually offered a lot than the normal regular S20, which was priced at $1,000. But at the same time, like even though it did have the cuts at the right price, it sold really well. Actually, sometimes even better than the S20 normal. And Samsung's aggressive price cuts, like within just 5 months of release, not like what LG actually did, but something similar to that, just makes your phone not really great value right now. And that is another problem as well. So all these problems have really been creating a bad and problematic atmosphere for the company itself. And that's where all of this confusion comes in. But it just doesn't end over here. So even though Samsung really made good phones, it's not like they actually like just made like really bad phones. They still do make good phones. Like the S21 Ultra has been like a lot of benchmarks for a lot of other Ultra phones of the year. It's just the fact that Samsung as a company is extremely problematic that it really didn't notice what was hitting it. Xiaomi. Now, look at Xiaomi. Xiaomi is a Chinese smartphone manufacturer who, unlike Huawei, actually has access to Google services, which is a good thing for them. But it's just the fact that people thought Xiaomi would also disappear like Huawei because Huawei disappeared because of Chinese trust issues. That actually didn't apply for Xiaomi. Even without actually like joining into the US market, it already topped off Samsung this year. And that was one hell of a warning for Samsung that they were going somewhere really wrong. Like Samsung was heavily promoting the fact that the foldables were the future. They doubled down on the prices. They refined it even more. But what did they get in return? Own cannibalized sales, poor management, and whatnot, a confused atmosphere for the whole company entirely. And so this was a big sign that Samsung isn't really doing well right now. Those of you who are actually watching will actually know why Samsung is acting really strange right now. Because like the S Pen had its own legacy and now it's just being thrown around, and even like future leaks of the S22 show that the S22 and S22 Pro are gonna look like proper S series. But then like the S22 Ultra is gonna look like a Note 22 Ultra, but the Note 22 Ultra is not a phone at all, which means the S22 Ultra would become a phone for business people, which in return will make it into a Note series phone, which just creates a lot of tension and confusion. So it's just two ways for Samsung right now. It's either they scrap up all of the problems that they did, including the hypocrisy stuff, and they start afresh with like announcing that this is for these kind of people, this is for these kind of people. Or if they just continue this, there's gonna be some serious problems, and they're only gonna excel as a company in like purely innovation on like the folds and stuff, because the only place where Samsung isn't that greatly confused is foldables, because they clearly have a vision of knowing that the flip phones are for casual people who want a small size normal phone, and the foldables are for like people who want to be productive, and that makes sense. But even if Samsung messes up with this, Samsung is kind of doomed. And with all of what is happening right now, this is a clear sign that Samsung should start doing something about it, and let's see what happens.